Good evening and welcome to California Today. I'm Daniel Hall, sitting in for Lang Jiang. Here's a preview of some of the stories that we have for you tonight. A rock climber nicknamed Pro-life Spiderman is scaling buildings to bring awareness to what he says are criminal actions by one doctor. NTD spoke to him after he climbed one of the tallest buildings in the United States. How much influence does the public have over police and lawyers? Quite a lot, according to one prosecutor. We'll hear about how the public's attention, or lack of it, on trials and crime influences outcomes. After the Roe v. Wade leak, one man has become somewhat of a superhero in the argument. The self-proclaimed pro-life Spiderman climbs buildings to draw attention to people he says should be in jail. NTD's Jason Blair spoke to the climber after scaling a building in San Francisco.
Mason Deschamps is not only a climber, but also a pro-life activist who surprised onlookers on Tuesday morning when he climbed the second tallest building in California.
After the news broke about Dr. Cesar Santangelo, that's what really sparked all of this. I've been wanting to climb the Salesforce Tower for a while. I've been looking at buildings in New York and whatnot, but when that happened, I was like, okay, they're not investigating this. That is absolutely insane. Like, if I can do anything, I have to do it now.
Dr. Santangelo is a late-term abortion doctor in Washington, D.C., and has been under fire from pro-life groups. Some accuse him of performing illegal live abortions.
I want to see this man in jail. He's an abortionist in D.C., and the D.C. police refuse to investigate him. Pro-life activists have recovered bodies that appear to be very, very late-term, if not illegally aborted outside of the womb, which is, just outright murdering babies.
Deschamps says his main goals are to raise awareness about Dr. Santangelo, as well as raise money for charity organizations. He says the timing with the leak suggesting the Supreme Court will overturn Roe versus Wade was not planned.
But it was crazy how that sort of helped the spread of my message too, and I couldn't believe it. I was very surprised.
Deschamps says that one of the reasons he chose the Salesforce Tower was because it had ledges to rest on every 10 feet.
One of the things that appealed to me when I was looking into buildings that I could climb is that the Salesforce Tower had a lot of rests, right? Because when you're climbing, you want to be able to stop and shake out or calm yourself if you're feeling overwhelmed. And I could do that every 10 feet on the Salesforce Tower. And so when I was climbing, I wasn't actually thinking about climbing a 1,000-foot building. I said, all I got to do is climb 10 feet at a time.
He said one thing he regretted was not bringing any water, but he enjoyed seeing all of the people inside the building while he was climbing.
I could see everyone through the glass. And so they were on the inside filming me.
The climber says, though, that the police were waiting for him when he arrived at the top.
Because I broke the law and I used up their resources, and I feel bad for that. But they were so defunded that they had to debate whether or not it was worth bringing me in.
Deschamps was eventually taken in and released about 2 hours later with 2 misdemeanors. One was for trespassing and one for resisting arrest for not complying when police told him to stop climbing.
Half of my family is mad. The other half thinks it's really cool. I have probably gotten 1,000 death threats from people. And, like actual death threats. And then you got people who are just like jump, jump off. And I just think that's stupid.
But he's also received a lot of support. Deschamps shares his activity on Instagram and said he especially enjoys reading the comments on his charity GoFundMe page. Jason Blair, NTD News, San Francisco.
The recall effort against the Los Angeles District Attorney reached another milestone recently. NTD's Eileen Ng spoke to a former district attorney who once held the same post about why the recall effort has so much momentum.
Los Angeles District Attorney George Gascon is facing a recall. As of May 1st, the effort to recall Gascon has surpassed 400,000 signatures and raised over $6 million to support the campaign. Steve Cooley, former Los Angeles County District Attorney and co-chairman of the Recall George Gascon campaign, says the recall is on track.
You have law enforcement, you have the deputy district attorneys in that office who have voted 98% to recall George Gascon. You have law-abiding citizens. You have people like myself, retired prosecutors who care very much for that office and know that he is destroying it. So yeah, you have a combination of a lot of different highly motivated people who want to get George Gascon out, and they're working hard.
Since Gascon entered office in 2020, he's been accused by critics of being too soft on crime amid an overhaul of the county's criminal justice system.
His policies are very, very criminal-oriented. Many of his policies do great harm to victims and victims' next of kin. They used to be helped and in some cases represented by the district attorney's office, but Gascon has shunned them. He works against them in the courtroom. He works against them at parole hearings.
To trigger a recall election, the campaign must collect over 560,000 verifiable signatures from registered Los Angeles County voters, or 10% of the total current registered voters, by July 6 to make it onto the November ballot. In addition to paid and volunteer signature gathering, campaign leaders said they are preparing to mail out petitions with prepaid return envelopes to target county voters. Prominent organizations support the recall effort, including the Association of Deputy District Attorneys and the Association for Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs. More than 34 cities have issued votes of no confidence in Gascon. The Gascon campaign informed NTD it has no comment at this time. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
No matter what county you live in, when it comes down to how laws are enforced, that's the choice of the district attorney. But as it turns out, there's a little bit more to it than just that. We have a special report from NTD's Cynthia Kai, who spoke to a former deputy prosecutor about how much public and media perceptions influences criminal prosecutions.
In recent months, stories on smash and grab robberies, theft targeting media companies' equipment, shootings, and potentially racially motivated crimes have filled headlines and social media. And according to one deputy prosecutor, all that attention is what ultimately gets criminals imprisoned.
I think social media is invaluable these days, like Nextdoor, Twitter, Instagram. When people start hearing these stories, oftentimes even news journalists start getting stories from social media. They'll pick it up, they'll publicize it, it'll go viral, it'll go national, and that helps also with that pressure campaign, right? Making sure we hold our leaders accountable.
Daniel Chung is a career criminal prosecutor and former deputy prosecutor for Santa Clara District Attorney Jeff Rosen. He said many police officers and DAs are having to respond from one emergency to the next. But prominent criminal cases that gain public attention may receive more urgency.
If time passes from one thing, they just don't care about it as much anymore. They can't care about it as much anymore. But if you keep the pressure going, right, then it keeps staying in their mind. And it's like, okay, we got to address this because there might be public criticism about this issue now, right? And it's not just going to die down.
He emphasized that the public has large influence over law enforcement's handling of justice.
The other thing is, if we want the community to be safer, right, we need to hold our leaders accountable, right? So if they're not doing the right thing, then we need to make sure that we criticize them. We make sure that we hold them to account.
Chung cited how riots following George Floyd's death influenced policing and prosecution.
I think that DAs these days in certain jurisdictions are trying to become very progressive and less about punishment and more just about services, right? And so I think it is a lot of political pressures that they are experiencing from certain constituencies and certain groups that are making them politically pushing prosecutions in a different way. They're losing their focus on their main responsibility, which is to enforce laws.
He encourages people to be more involved and aware of who is being elected to represent and serve them. Chung said that those same elected officials are the ones changing criminal justice to favor suspects over victims.
I think it's criminal justice reforms that are imbalanced, right? So for example, Prop 47 came out a while ago and it was labeled the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. Sounds good on paper, right? But when you actually implement it, right, repeat offenders, serious offenders, violent offenders get away with crimes.
According to data from the California Department of Justice, prosecution rejections are on the increase for criminal cases. That means district attorneys are more often turning suspects away from the scales of justice. Chung highlighted one example that he personally worked on.
I had an attempted murder case where a guy, young guy, went into 3 stores with a real gun, robbed all of them, took a whole bunch of stuff. In his last robbery at the 3rd store, a random witness came in because they were just there to buy something.
As the witness fled, the thief shot at him.
Luckily, he didn't get hit. That's why it's an attempted murder case. DA Rosen wanted me to consider dismissal with a special interest group. That's how much we've gotten soft on crime.
Chung is running for the Santa Clara District Attorney's seat alongside Sajid Khan and incumbent DA Rosen. The primaries are on June 7th and midterm election on November 8th. Cynthia Kai, NTD News, California.
Don't go away because we're going to take a short break, so here's a look at what we've got for you when we come back. Internet service fees won't be changing too much in California as net neutrality is here to stay. Service providers pulled their lawsuit but may be looking for federal changes instead. And an animal service in Northern California is running an adoption event over the weekend. They're putting big discounts on their big dogs and everything else. We'll have that story and much more on California Today. In another step in the ongoing battle over the internet, multiple telecommunication companies agreed to drop their efforts in stopping California's net neutrality law.
The joint decision on Wednesday was made by internet service providers and Attorney General Rob Bonta. It ended the nearly 4-year legal battle in California. Bonta said now the case is finally over. Following multiple defeats in court, internet service providers have abandoned this effort to block enforcement of California's net neutrality law. Net neutrality prohibits companies from blocking web content or slowing down internet traffic if the content is lawful. Internet service providers said broadband providers are united in support of an open internet, but that the current laws are outdated and discourage investment. They plan to work with Congress and the FCC to develop a federal approach.
Amazon is going to be hiring thousands of people in Southern California. Here's a look at what positions are opening and where they'll be hiring. Online retail giant Amazon announced on Tuesday its plan to add 2,500 jobs in Southern California. The expansion includes more than 1,000 in Santa Monica, 800 in Irvine, and over 700 in San Diego. Holly Sullivan, the company's vice president of worldwide economic development, said these new jobs include roles building cloud infrastructure, improving the Alexa experience, and designing cutting-edge video games. Besides technical roles, Amazon is also looking to fill corporate positions in human resources, finance, IT, and more. Sullivan said that Amazon is offering career opportunities to all Californians. Irvine Mayor Farah Khan welcomes Amazon's move to bring more jobs to the city. Khan said in a statement, Amazon's expansion of its tech hub in Irvine is a testament to the fantastic talent pool and high-quality life our city has to offer. To accommodate the expansion, Amazon has signed leases in all 3 cities and expects to move in starting later this year to mid-2023. Facebook's parent company Meta plans to open its first physical store with the goal of letting customers try their hand at virtual reality. Here's a look at what the store is offering.
Meta is bringing its virtual reality world into the physical dimension. They're launching a physical store to give customers a hands-on experience at the tech.
We're talking about the metaphysical world and virtual reality, yet the first step we're taking along that journey is building a very physical store.
Facebook's transition to Meta reflects its aim to create an immersive and realistic digital world. Research Director Omar Akhtar at Altimeter says the Metastore is a good way to entice people into the virtual world.
But the truth of it is that physical things never went away and they're never going to go away. And everybody realizes that even if we are going to step into the virtual world, we're going to need to access it with hardware.
The Metastore is located in Burlingame, less than 20 miles from San Francisco.
Last thing you're going to do as soon as you pick it up from me, you're going to hit this power button right here. Okay. And you're going to hold it until you see the little white button come on.
Akhtar says it's a fact that people like to try before they buy.
The idea of having a really nice retail location is something that once Apple pioneered that it could be done and it could be vertically integrated the whole way through. Everybody's been trying to do some version of it with varying degrees of success, especially out here in Silicon Valley.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg envisions a virtual environment called the Metaverse. It's also expected that the Metaverse would eventually incorporate other aspects of online life, such as shopping and social media. So far, there is only one Metastore, and it plans to open its doors to the real world on Monday, May 9th.
For all of you animal lovers out there, May is National Pet Month. One animal shelter in Northern California has added more hours for adoption and even lowered fees. NTD went to have a look at who was looking for a new home.
Oakland Animal Services is holding a special event to celebrate National Pet Month. The director, Ann Dunn, has worked for the Oakland Animal Shelter for about 2 years.
Our main goal is matchmaking, so trying to help people find an animal that's a good fit. And we do want to make it as easy as possible for people to adopt, so we try not to have barriers to adoption.
The shelter has decreased their adoption fees for all animals to $20 through the weekend. $20 is much lower than regular adoption fees. Dog adoption fees are $150 on a regular day at this shelter.
I know that people have concerns about reduced fees for adoptions, and but the research shows that it's really not a factor, that people take it seriously. So it's not on a whim getting an animal.
Naturally, Anne encourages people to get a pet.
The advantage of having a pet is just pure love. It just accepts you who you are, and having that kind of companionship to come home to, if you've had a bad day and you come home and you see that animal, it just kind of helps you release that.
Oakland Animal Services makes the adoption much easier, and that there are ways to adapt to various lifestyles.
Let's say you live in an apartment, we're not going to say you can't adopt, but we're going to say make sure that you take the dog on a long walk and give it the exercise that it needs, which is good for the dog and it's good for you.
Anne said there are multiple reasons why animals are sent to shelters. She said some are sent by previous owners, while others are strays or lost.
I first got my dog at a Sacramento shelter because they were full, and I saw that the Oakland shelter was full, and I really hate to see these dogs, get killed or anything like that, so we really wanted to adopt one as well, so that we could have a friend for my dog.
I've been looking for a dog for the past 2 months. I had my dog, Rocky. He was a pit bull mixed with the German Shepherd for 10 years, and sadly he passed away in November, which was heartbreaking, and we've been looking for a new dog. Well, not to replace him, but we need a companion.
More visitors are coming with their friends and family since the adoption event begins. Volunteers, who are major contributors to the effectiveness of shelters, are helping visitors who are interested in adopting pets. One volunteer said they work to rehabilitate animals before adopting them out.
Healing the dogs, and so these families get them, and it's the coolest thing. But seeing a dog kind of come out of their shell is beautiful. But I also feel like making sure that the animals have what they need, being in homes that people know how to treat their animals and they know how to be good pet owners. That's so important.
Pam emphasized the companionship of pets, but also the responsibility of taking care of them. Oakland Shelter is open to everyone, and they encourage locals to come and see who's looking for a home.
Now to NTD's Thomas Christian for an update on sports.
I'm Thomas Christian, giving you your California Today Sports Roundup.
Tied at 1 game apiece in their first round series against the Edmonton Oilers, the LA Kings have shown that they belong. Let's take a look back into what got them here and what will take them forward into the NHL playoffs. The Los Angeles Kings raised the Stanley Cup for the second time in June 2014, punctuating a phenomenal 3-year run in which the longtime NHL afterthoughts won 10 playoff series as one of the most tenacious teams in hockey. And then, the Kings won just 1 playoff game in nearly 8 years between that Cup title in 2014 and Monday's series opening victory in Edmonton. Getting to the pinnacle of the sport was a long, laborious process for a Second Six franchise that won 1 conference title in its first 43 seasons of existence. The 3-year period of success from 2012 to 2014 was a comfort to LA's long-suffering fans after their team slipped back into the NHL pack. With a roster that exceeded many expectations this season just by making the playoffs, the Kings are starting to believe that getting back to the top might not take decades again. Tied 1-1 with the star-studded Oilers in their first-round series, the Kings are still underdogs, but they're confident that they're building something, and an opening night victory could go a long way to proving the odds wrong. The Kings slid slowly from their peak while former general manager Dean Lombardi's front office mightily tried to preserve a championship-winning culture. They handed out enormous contracts with baffling regularity, and they ended up regretting many of them. Trapped between reloading and rebuilding, the Kings finally were forced to change nearly every key component of their franchise over the past 8 seasons. The team that takes the ice in downtown LA for Game 3 on Friday has only a few things in common with the champions, who raised the 2 title banners hanging in the rafters. Yet the Kings managed to preserve a remarkable, nearly unique foundation in the modern game. 4 players remain on the roster from their 2 championship teams. Because star defenseman Drew Doughty is out for the season after wrist surgery, only 3 are playing against the Oilers. And with Dustin Brown's pending retirement, only 3 will be back next season. But what a quartet it is. Brown, Doughty, Anze Kopitar, and Jonathan Quick were drafted and developed by the Kings between 2003 and 2008, and they've been together for the past 14 seasons. Few teams in all of sports can boast such regularity, and while the Kings overhauled their front office, made 3 coaching changes, and replaced every other player on the roster since their championships, those 4 have stayed to give Los Angeles an identity, a ticket-selling focal point, and an institutional memory of success. Yet the Kings treaded water for several seasons in a mediocre stretch that continued even after Blake took charge of the front office in 2017 and McClellan took over the bench in 2019, while Brown and Captain Kopitar provide leadership and points. The second generation of talent is emerging alongside Blake's canny decisions of veterans Philip Deneau and Victor Arvidsson. Adrian Kemp had a career high of 35 goals and 54 points in his All-Star season, and Southern California native Trevor Moore chipped in with a career-high 48 points. The Kings preserved from a 1-5-1 start to the season, ensuing injury problems to emerge as the 3rd-best team in the Pacific Division. Even if they don't manage to upset the Oilers, Los Angeles is building a base of success for the future.
Thanks for tuning in to the California Today Sports Roundup.
That's all we've got for you today. Thank you for joining us on California Today. We'll be back every weekday at 8:30 p.m. If you have any tips or ideas for our show, or if you've got a news lead, send us an email at california.today@ntd.com. I'm Daniel Hall, sitting in for Lang Jiang. Have a wonderful evening.